What is up, everybody? Welcome to the weekend preview of the Next Guy Up podcast. It is just me and Zach today. Mason has escaped the tundra that has hit Tennessee. He is chilling in the Mexican Gulf right now on a cruise ship. So lucky him. So we're
Yeah,
going
one
to hold
lucky
down the
guy.
fort today.
Yeah.
But with cold weather comes basketball. So this is our official. We're going to be kicking off some college basketball news and just kind of talking a little college basketball. Personally, one of my favorite sports to keep up with just because it is so chaotic. We'll be doing a little bit of an update on what's going on with the college football coaching carousel. Also, the same thing with NFL coaching updates. There's not a ton, but there's a lot of rumors flying around, and we like those.
We do.
We'll do a quick recap of the NFL playoffs and look ahead to what's going on this weekend. News update. We will not be giving out any picks on the podcast today. I will have some picks cooked up for the graphic that comes out on Saturday mornings. NFL playoffs is hard. It's very hard to bet. So we're not going to give them out early. Lines move a lot. And I don't have my guy Mason to help cook. Zach does not touch NFL betting for playoff because he's smart.
Oh.
He doesn't waste his money like me. Not that I didn't have. I had an okay weekend. I just had a lot of faith in the Rams, but we'll get there. But first, let's talk about a little college basketball and how chaotic the season has kind of. I feel like the season really starts about this time of year when conference play starts. A lot of the out of conference play before, like in November, early December, it's kind of hard to judge because it's like teams that don't see each other very often. They're kind of contrasting styles. It can kind of get out of hand quick either way. So it's kind of hard to judge. But when you get to conference play, that's where you really can tell a team that's like ready for the tournament or not. So it's been fun. Early conference tournament or early conference games. Kind of seeing who's for real and who's not in their respective conferences. But Zach's got some very interesting stats about some home court advantage stuff that me and him have been talking about a lot lately.
Yeah, it's a so I think I've personally I've seen this a little bit. So obviously I follow Tennessee basketball very closely. Probably at least as closely as I follow the football stuff. I'm in on it. I attended the Ole Miss game a few weeks ago. I got to see a really fun home court environment. And then all of a sudden, we started seeing some crazy upsets around the country. And so just for some context, if maybe you don't follow college basketball super closely, here's what the top 10 is looking like currently. UConn is now the number one overall in the nation, and that is partly because between last week and this week, we had a ton of really big upsets happen. And so just to kind of fill you in on what it looked like last week, Purdue, the number one overall team, took a loss on the road. So did Houston, number two overall, as did Kansas, number three. Tennessee also, unfortunately, took a really big road loss to Mississippi State, and Kentucky lost on the road. And so all of a sudden, our landscape is looking a good bit different because five of the top six teams all lost on the road last week. And so this week, our top 10 is looking different, and UConn was the only team that survived, and so they just moved up to number one. And so it got me thinking about home court advantage. You've seen it a lot. I think I've seen it personally because Tennessee now is a top five or six team in the nation, and so they've started doing getting everyone's best kind of punch on the road. And so that's part of sports is whenever you're at the top, people want to take you down. People are going to show up, and especially if you're on the road, and they're going to give you their best game. And that's been happening. Georgia just nearly gave Tennessee 2 losses in a row last week, but did take a pretty bad loss to Mississippi State. I mean, the line was 1.5, so that was predicted. I think Mississippi State's not a bad team, by any stretch. I think there's actually a lot of really. I think the SEC is going to send a lot of teams to the tournament this year. There's a lot of those teams that maybe aren't top 10 teams, but are right in the middle. The Tennessee plays Alabama this Saturday, and Alabama is number 7 in the Ken Palm rankings right now. Tennessee's number 4, and Alabama's number 7, and so it's going to be another really good matchup. I think the SEC is maybe not as bad as some people talk like they are. Tennessee and Kentucky are obviously in the top 10. But there's a lot of teams floating around that are just kind of in that middle of the road kind of section, but there's a lot of them. Alabama is one. Ole Miss is one that I still think is a pretty good team. Then we saw Mississippi State be pretty good, and so it's going to be an interesting SEC season this year. But I was curious about a couple of home court advantage things that are happening. I sent a text during the Tennessee-Georgia game whenever Tennessee was down by 11 late, and I was like, guys, I think home court advantage in college basketball right now is broken. Like it seems like it's overwhelming. And Tennessee also was on the other end of that when they played North Carolina, who is famously has one of the best home court advantages in the nation, and kind of just got run off the court by North Carolina at I forget what is their stadium called? Do you remember? North Carolina? I don't remember. It'll come to me. But and so looking, last year in college basketball, about 60% of home teams won their games last season. So 60%, I mean, that is sizable when you're talking about across all of college basketball. And I think it's increasing. I saw a tweet from someone earlier that's in the media who's talking about how a lot of colleges are starting to put their student sections really close to the floor, and they're giving them some of those what are considered the primetime seats and the most expensive seats, but they're sacrificing that for the home court advantage because your students are going to be the loudest, and if you put them close to the floor, it's going to create as much chaos. And so that's what places like North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky have done for a long time, and other people are starting to do it as well. Tennessee is refusing to change that seating arrangement this year. Some of the students are behind both goals, but most of the rest of the sideline seats are going to. I mean, it's like season ticket holders, things like that. Yeah. People who are sometimes older, and they get a lot of grief because sometimes they're older people who don't want to really make a noise and stand up and get into the game, and so it kind of does. Thompson Bowling Arena is a loud place to whenever it's a big game for sure, and I think because it's huge. It's like in the top 5 in capacity in the country. So you have been seeing that, but a couple of stats for you. A lot of gamblers have started thinking about how many points that a home court advantage will give you. And a lot of them say sometimes between 3.5 and 4 points for a normal team. But they say some schools like Duke, Kansas, Gonzaga, some of your famous like big home court advantages can come up to 6, 7, or even 8 points just because they're playing at home. And that's a humongous. I mean, obviously it exists in college football as well. And I think this is an interesting conversation. I think some people have said that momentum doesn't really. You've heard the thing about momentum and it not being as big of a factor, but I think in college basketball more than anything, whenever it's so fast paced and it's so chaotic, like Ten said, having a crowd all of a sudden start getting wild when you're kind of going on a run, I think makes a huge difference. And so I think that's why we see that there's been so many road upsets. And Tens and I were talking text-wise that we said, this is what would happen if the NCAA tournament had home court advantage for the higher seed. How different that some of our NCAA tournament stuff would look.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that's why we see so many. It's like a saying: you always take the home team that's favored over a ranked opponent. You might have a team that's better, but that home court advantage is so important in college basketball because I do think there is that extra layer of these guys are kids. It's chaotic when there's momentum swings in college basketball that are more important than I think in any other sport.
Yep,
any other sport, you can kind of anything can kind of turn on its head in a football game or even an NBA game. But college basketball, all it takes is going on one run, and that the favorite team, the higher ranked seed uh, or ranked team, has all that pressure on them, and you're playing with house money at home in front of your crowds. And if you got a rowdy crowd, it's I think it's very important. And I do think if March Madness tournament, if the top seeds did get home court advantage, like if they got to play at home, I do. You said it would just be the blue bloods every year, and I definitely agree with that. Where it would be so much harder for like an 8 seed to upset a 1 seed or something like that to happen if you've got your
Yeah,
home court jumping.
I agree. And like I said, I saw it this week with Georgia. All of a sudden, Tennessee comes to town. This kind of middle of the road Georgia team all of a sudden looks really good. Their stadium is full, maybe for it's sold out for maybe the first time all
First
season.
time,
I don't know if
yeah.
that's true, but um, it is, and that's part of the game, I guess. But it is interesting to see. I think if you're kind of a middle of the road team, you always want to play upset, and you love to beat the guy who's up there. So I get it, and it's fun stuff. College basketball always wild. Tens. Looking at the top of the rankings right now.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think maybe is a contender? Who do you think is maybe a fraud that you think is going to get exposed as soon as the tournament starts, possibly, or down the stretch?
Yeah. So, I mean, my popular answer here is Purdue. I think Purdue is always a fraud.
Mm,
They just have always proved it to us to get beat by a much lower seed. They have one option, and it's Zach Edey. And if you can
yep.
kind of slow him down just a little bit, you've got a good chance at beating them. The team that I think that, and this is going to hurt to say, I think Kentucky is for real this year, and I
Mm.
feel like I kind of say that every year because they are so talented.
Yeah.
Calipari is kind of their weak spot because he's not a good coach. He's a great recruiter because he's got that ticket to the NBA. But I feel like he's got the guard play this year to kind of get a little bit further in the tournament than normal.
Mm.
So they're definitely a team I've been watching a lot. I do tend to kind of lean more towards watching SEC basketball just because it's on locally more, so I catch a lot
Yeah.
of that. But they're definitely a team I'm worried about. And then another team, maybe a little bit of a sleeper here. I know we have a Big Ten bias of not liking them, but I think Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a
Mm.
team full of upperclassmen um, playing in big minutes, veteran team, well coached. I like them to kind of maybe make a run as well.
Yeah. As Wisconsin plays better and better, that Tennessee did have a big road win against Wisconsin early in the non-conference, which that win is looking better and better as everything goes. Um, I will say Kentucky and Tennessee is one of the most intriguing. Like every year, this happens where Tennessee is like a veteran team. Kentucky has a very young team, pretty much exclusively, and they have this where they play each other at home, and they almost always split the series there.
Yeah,
But I do think Kentucky is pretty good. I think Tennessee is pretty good as well. I mean, I've watched all of Tennessee's games, and so you see, and so speaking of Tennessee, Dalton Connect
yeah,
is has become a problem. He had 39 points. He had 36 the game before against Georgia in the comeback win. Um, that guy scores like I don't know if I've seen a Tennessee player ever for sure. There's not a lot of college players putting up 30, 40 points a game. It just doesn't really
right.
happen very much. And
No,
so he's very fun to watch.
yeah, it's definitely fun seeing like a true NBA like talent on your team because I mean we've put some guys in the NBA like
Yeah.
Like Grant Williams and Schofield and guys like that that were fun to root for in college, but
Yeah.
he's a different kind of player. Like he's a lottery pick NBA talent, like guy who's probably going to start. He's fun. He's definitely like, and it's fun that he's offensive. Like can score. He can shoot the three mid range, gets to the basket. It makes
Mm.
for a little bit more fun style of Tennessee
Yeah.
basketball because we did have some
Yep.
years of just ground
Very defense heavy. Yeah.
ground ground and pound type
Yeah.
teams.
It's accurate. Well, Rick Barnes at the beginning of the season made the statement that he felt like Connect was NBA ready offense wise, and I was like, Rick does not say stuff like that very often, and I was like,
No.
that's very interesting. And but it became clear that his offensive talent is incredible, and he chose to come to Tennessee to work on his defense, knowing that he was looking to get to the NBA after the season, and so he wanted a coach that would push him and would push him to get better. And so it's been fun to watch him this season. He had a couple games in the he started off super hot. He had a couple games where he was struggling. I don't know if he was banged up or some teams were kind of figuring out some different ways to guard him to limit him.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, the last 3 games he's gone off, and so fun to watch. I do agree that Kentucky could be a problem going down the stretch. I think North Carolina has a pretty good team as well. I've not watched very much UConn, to be honest with you, so I'm not sure about them.
They're a carbon copy of the team last year,
Mm,
essentially.
well,
Which I mean, they won it all,
they
but
did do that.
just
Yeah.
can they repeat? It's just I feel like college basketball is the hardest to try and
Oh yeah.
repeat, just
It
because the
is.
tournament is such a wild card. And
You
then
do feel like it's different in college basketball because you almost have to build a team to succeed in a tournament style.
mhm.
Like if you want to win it all, it almost requires putting together a different type of roster than if you're like looking to win a lot of games over the course of a season. Where I don't know, it is weird because all it takes is getting hot for 5 or 6 games in a row, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden you win it all. You know,
Like a good
so
example of that to me is Houston, who's always played in the ACC or not the AAC, and they
right,
dominate their conference. And they're always, I mean, even this year they're a 5 seed, even moving to the Big 12. But they play a style of basketball that's always dominated the conferences they're in. And then once
mm-hmm,
they get in the tournament, they're always like they're an early upset because they only play one style of basketball, and it's kind of easy to
right,
figure out. And so that's why,
sure,
like you said, you've got to be able to kind of mix and match, have different pieces on your team, and that's why transfer portal has been huge for college basketball, and it's why another team I kind of been keeping an eye on is Kansas. They've always
mm-hmm,
they've always seemed to do really well when they have a big man they can play through, and they have Hunter Dickerson, who's one of the
yep,
better
he's
big
a
men in
beast.
the country. I mean, he's a freak. He can shoot the three. He's going to play defense, protect the rim, and then go down and rebound too. So they're definitely another team to keep an eye on as well. I mean, they always are. Kansas is a blue blood for a reason, but
Yep.
they've kind of set themselves up to be what Bill Self likes, which is play through the big guy and
Mm-hmm.
kind of high tempo, wear you down type team. But it's definitely transfer portal has definitely made college basketball, along with football too, but college basketball pretty interesting because you can see these guys that like a Jordan or not Jordan Love, Caleb Love, who was at North Carolina, who's a great player. He's down at Arizona now, and he's lighting it up for them, giving them
Yeah.
an extra dimension they've never really had.
Hmm.
So it's been fun. It's been fun to dive into getting ready. I mean, I love March Madness, but you gotta prepare before that.
Yeah, you got to get it ready. And I mean, it's been a fun season. There's a lot of teams up in the top that you expect to be up there. And so I think there is, like I said, there's a big game this Saturday for Tennessee playing
Yeah, it's
Alabama.
gonna be
We
a
will
big game.
see how they do. I think Alabama is kind of underrated right now, maybe compared to their what their potential is. And so it'll be fun. One more college basketball thing before we move on. We are switching over to the women's game. I think we would be remiss to not mention this happening because I think it's almost historic at this point. Caitlin Clark, if you've not been watching any women's basketball, which I don't know if you do, but Caitlin Clark has been dominating in a way that is just almost unthinkable. And if you watch some highlights, it's almost like back when Steph Curry was kind of emerging into like the NBA and people were realizing what he could do. It feels sort of like that, where it's just watching where she's shooting from. It's just like get her the ball every play almost and let her shoot because the odds are it's going in. Tens, have you watched any
I've seen a lot of her
highlights or?
I've
Yeah,
seen a lot of her highlights. We've had a lot of like debates at UPS, like could she how many guys in college basketball could she beat in a 3-point contest? And it's
I would
pretty
say almost all of
pretty
them,
good
probably.
list because
Yeah.
she's a sniper out there. Honestly, I mean it's fun to watch. I mean it's crazy how like she's dominating that sport so much, and I mean they're a favorite to win it all.
Yeah, some stats from her right now. She's averaging 31 points a game, which in women's basketball, whenever I mean your average score is what, like maybe 60
60
points a game. I don't know what
right.
like the
They're
league average,
averaging like
60, 70
100
maybe.
100 to uh like 100 to 120 points a game combined. It's like their
Yeah,
totals.
and she's got
So
31 a game. Her last few, she had 31 points. She had 33 points against Wisconsin, 34 against Indiana, top or number 14 in the nation, 35 against Purdue, 29 against Rutgers, 37 against Michigan State. And that's just her last 5 games.
yeah.
Uh, Crazy numbers. She's also averaging 7 rebounds a game, almost 8 assists. She's about 50% from the field right now. So
Hmm.
just insane numbers getting put up. And then, I mean, and it's the reality is that that's basically with an eye on her at all times. Like, teams are not just letting her sit out there and shoot.
Right.
If you watch, it's just, I mean, like I said, the same thing Steph Curry deals with. Double teams and defense is designed around having just someone follow her around all the time, and to still get up shots like that is wild. So fun stuff over there to keep an eye on. I think I was looking at making a run for sure. So
I was trying to pull up like a team average, just random women's basketball, like Kansas State. It won't pull up, but like their top scorer averages 17 points a game.
yeah, so
And their
31.
numbers, they're the number 7 team in the country. So I mean, it's just she's
Crazy.
on a whole different level right now, which is fun to watch. It's fun whenever you get an athlete who's just like on a different level than everyone else they're playing with. Like you said, like Steph Curry when he was in college, you just
Yeah,
knew he was going to be or NBA 3-point shooter. Like he was just better than everyone. So it's just fun when you've got somebody like that to kind of like watch and put up all these highlights.
true.
And who knows, maybe connect for UT. He's kind of on that path right now. He's an
Get him go
NBA
in.
player playing with college basketball boys right now.
That's true.
Let's get past the Sweet 16 one time for old Barnesy, huh?
Boy, I would love that. Let's get it. Make it
So
happen.
that's some college basketball talk. We've been teasing it for a while. We
Yeah, that was
decided
some good college
it was the
basketball
week
talk.
to do
Yeah.
it because there's not much going on. I mean, we were going to talk about college football. All I really had with it was Alabama's getting murdered, or you had this. They're getting killed in the portal.
I
It
did
kind of
put
all
that
came
in
out today.
today.
It's
Yeah.
they're losing a lot of big names. I saw the left tackle who was an all American true freshman started every game. He's entered the portal.
Mm,
Um, the
bummer.
corner the cornerback is transferring to Ohio State. So I mean, they're losing some pieces. I guess the new head coach didn't inspire some of these top recruits to stick around, which is tough. I feel like he's a
Yeah.
good coach, but that's just part of it. You're going to lose guys.
With so the popular talking point this week, which is this is from a biased point of view, but seeing Alabama complain about the transfer portal, it's just been very funny. And
Yeah,
because they are. And so what's happening with Alabama right now is because of the Culture War playoff and because of they announced their coaching change a good bit later than most other teams. And so a lot of their players are leaving for the portal, but there's not very many players still available to take in.
right,
And so uh, and the window is closing, and so there's kind of a lot of rules around when you can transfer and stuff. And so kind of the situation is all of their best players are on the way out to other teams, and they can't really get all the only good players left in the portal are all the players that are leaving. And so they're
right.
kind of stuck in a pretty bad situation. I can't say I feel bad for them here in this situation. It is, but it is something to watch because, like, I mean, I saw a tweet showing their roster from last year, and it is. I mean, it's getting hit pretty hard.
Right.
Some of their best players are on the way out. And did you see the clip where who is what is the Alabama safety that just is announced the transfer portal that's been in the news a lot?
I can't think of it. His last name's like McKinnon or
Shoot.
Carton, something like that.
Um, there was a couple clips that came out after the Alabama Georgia game. Did you see this?
I see this.
There, there was a couple people. It seemed like Kirby Smart made a point to go and say hi to after the game.
Oh boy,
And it was a
always be
couple of
recruiting. Always recruiting.
it was a couple players who have now entered the transfer portal, and I think a coach as well. And so,
Yeah. Okay. I did see that where Georgia did get Alabama's defensive backs coach to. Oh wow, that's perfect. To go, he's now their defensive back coach at Georgia.
yes, so
Yeah.
he had said he was talking to him and talking to because he's been big in the. I'm trying to think of this guy's name because he's kind of the number one. He was like freshman of the year in the country.
Yeah. He's. I mean,
Um,
as a true freshman, they're already talking about his draft where he's going to be a top 10 pick as a safety.
yeah, and he is on his way out apparently. So, uh, it's things are breaking down over there in Alabama. We will see. It also seems like they're really intentionally that DeBoer is going after FBS head coaches for some of his coordinator
Coordinator.
positions, which is
Yeah.
it's kind of an interesting strategy. Like, Caleb Downs, that's his name, Caleb Downs. Um, he's the one who just entered the transfer portal from Alabama. He was that safety I was talking about,
Okay.
or
Yeah.
defensive back. He's a defensive
Yeah.
back.
Defensive back.
Um, and so he looks like he's pretty intentionally putting like people with head coaching experience in these coordinator positions, which may end up being a very good idea. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen who he's going after for offensive coordinator yet. The hire for defensive coordinator, the guy from San Jose State, I think
mm,
that's a good hire. They've been a very good program out in the Mountain West. He's recruited well, one of the better defenses every year, and so I mean, bring that over to the SEC. He's definitely got connects out there in California in that area for recruiting, so that's a big deal. Um, so I like doing that. I like putting a head coach in a coordinator position because
yeah.
they kind of can help him, you know, because that's a big job. Alabama's a big job, so he's going to need all the help he can get, getting people with a lot of head coaching experience. Not that he didn't have it with Washington at another big program, but I mean, Bama's just a whole other thing.
So they added the Buffalo head coach as well,
Oh
Maurice
wow,
Linguist, as their as defensive assistant. So he left
wow.
his job at Buffalo, who went 3-9 last year, to
Hmm.
join Alabama's coaching staff. So
And he just got that job because the Buffalo's head
yeah,
coach had just left the year before to take and I can't remember where, but a job. Ah, that's gonna bother me. But
well, I
a
know
big
it's crazy to keep track of it all
Power
right
Five,
now.
yeah. So I mean, a guy who had been a head coach for 1 year in a Division I conference in the MAC, leaving to not even be a coordinator but to be an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just shows you that if you can get in and the staff does well, you're going to be able to get a bigger, better job. Which I don't know if Bama really appreciates all these guys coming in and try to use it as a step stool, but
Right.
it is what it is, I guess.
Well, there's a lot of talk about Bama. Maybe their pockets aren't as deep as some of the other programs around the SEC, like A&M. Well, so that's the thing. I mean, I think I think people are seeing how much Nick Saban was kind of holding together.
Yeah,
That
that's true.
it felt like a dynasty at Alabama. But is the rest of the structure there to support it, or once you take Nick Saban out of the picture, is it just gonna is it gonna crumble? I mean, that's always a question mark with you when you have a coach leave. We saw it with Tennessee when Phil Fulmer left. All of a
Yeah,
sudden, the bottom just fell out of the program, and it was a full rebuild basically immediately
for
after that.
years.
So that's the question: is the like how much is the coach worth compared to the program? Can your program be solid enough to make up for a new head coach coming in and this kind of turnover with coaching and players. I don't know.
Well,
We'll see.
I think another team that's about to go through this, and this will be a good transition for us to go from
Okay.
college to NFL,
Great.
is Jim Harbaugh.
Yep.
Is he leaving this time, or is this just another way for him to get a pay raise from Michigan? And at this point, he's really hurting Michigan's program if he's going to take one of these NFL jobs because we're late into the. I mean,
It'll be the same situation that Alabama had, but worse at this point.
but worse because now
Yep.
they can't even really pick their own guy. They're gonna have to probably just hire someone that wants to stick around off Harbaugh's staff that he's not going to take to the NFL. But what's that going to do for guys that maybe are wanting to transfer in or transfer out? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to put them in a bad situation. A team that's coming off of a national championship. But this
Yep.
isn't the first time we've seen Harbaugh do this. This is actually, I think, 3 years in a row where he's taken NFL interviews and then Michigan throws a bag at him to stay. I do think this is the time that he will actually take one of these jobs. It's probably one of the best job opening cycles in the NFL. You've got a lot of young teams, a lot of good cap room, quarterback situations kind of set, like with the Chargers, which is the job he's really linked to right now. So I would be shocked at this point if he did not take one of these jobs, but anything's possible. I don't know how deep Michigan's pockets are, but money talks. And see,
Yep.
apparently the thing he's asking for is full immunity from this investigation, essentially saying if it comes out that it's worse than everyone thinks, Michigan can't turn around and fire me for cause right after. And I guess Michigan's kind of pushing back on that. So I
That's
think at this
insanity.
point,
Yeah.
that's why that's why to me it points to him going to the NFL and just having a fresh start. Kind of saw the same thing happen to Pete Carroll years and years ago, and he just finished having a 14-year NFL career. Um,
Yeah.
but that will so I'm gonna kind of we're gonna quickly go over NFL coaching situations. Nothing has been filled yet. It's rumor season right now. The only job that's been filled is the Patriots, which is it was kind of been
Mm-hmm.
set for a while that Gerard Mayo, former UT Vol, shout out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he's been kind of the coach in waiting for the last few years. He's
Yeah.
been offered other head coaching jobs and turned them down because he knew the Patriots job was his, unless something crazy happened, which it didn't. So he was introduced today. Actually, they had their press conference. So he is the first uh, full time head coach hire for this season. Still got a lot of jobs open. I kind of touched on Harbaugh has now interviewed with the Falcons and Chargers. Bill Belichick has interviewed with the Falcons, and then there's a whole bunch of other people. Long list of names. The Titans have interviewed a bunch of people. One to watch out for, Titans fans. Apparently, he is the new favorite. Is Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator for the
Mm.
Lions, whose defense has been worse than Mike Vrabel's the last 3 years, and is an
It's
older
great
coach.
news.
And I'm seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter that if the Titans hire Aaron Glenn, that there would be a riot in the streets against Amy because people are already mad at her about
Accurate.
firing Vrabel and letting Derrick Henry walk, and just a lot of stuff going on. So
Yeah,
we'll
it's not
definitely
looking
have
good.
we're gonna have a pulse on what's going on in the Music City for sure. As this head coaching hire and this rebuild are very important for the status of this new stadium that the state of Tennessee is
That's true.
expecting us to help pay
True as
for.
well.
Don't know if they're gonna get my tax dollars. I'll tell you that.
You're just gonna withhold it.
Yeah, we'll withhold all of it.
Yeah. Not pay taxes. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah,
Tinsley is
come
going to
after me,
refuse to
IRS.
pay his taxes. um, very interesting stuff. It is okay. I have a question.
Yes.
What would if let's say theoretically the Jags coaching position was open? It's not, and Doug Peterson is. I think there's some in the air still, right? GM is in the air, maybe, and
It's a lame duck season essentially. Everything I've heard from my sources is our owner said, "All right, guys, figure it out because if this happens again next year, everybody's
everyone's
gone.
gone.
We'll start all over."
Well, Trevor Lawrence had some
Trevor,
injuries in situations, so I guess you can say maybe we didn't reach our potential, but So let's say just for theory, we won't talk about
Yeah,
the Jags here, but just for
right, right.
theory,
Yeah.
head coach position was open. Would you want Bill Belichick as the head coach?
If you're getting Bill Belichick the coach, yeah. But if he's demanding that he's also the GM, no. I think Bill Belichick, the GM, got the coach fired.
Mm,
He's a great coach. He's still one of the better defensive minds in the whole league, um, and he could put together a good offensive staff. But when he started being in control of drafts and
hmm
free agency, that's when the situation with like Tom Brady was let go because Belichick said he thought he was done. Um, so I just don't think he's. And it's just a hard job to be in
Yeah,
control of every single thing in your whole team, including scouts and prepping for the draft
I
and
don't
free
know why you'd want that
agency.
job. I'll just be
I don't know
honest.
why. I don't know
Sounds
why you do
terrible.
either. Yeah, it's way too much power and too much responsibility for one guy who's also trying to coach and make a new game plan on a weekly basis. So
Yeah,
I still think Belichick's got it as a coach, and I do think he's going to go somewhere where he doesn't have to be the GM.
yeah,
That's why I think he's kind of slow playing it right now because I think one of these jobs of a playoff team might become open this week. I think either the Cowboys or Eagles job could get open. I mean, we're
yeah.
talking Wednesday night right now. When this podcast comes out on Friday morning, it very well could have a change. I think one of those jobs could be open, if not both. Neither one of their owners are patient men that are going to accept the way their seasons ended, especially the Eagles being 10-1, best record in the league.
It's pretty
Uh,
bad.
Full collapse. I mean, they not only didn't end up winning their division, but first round playoff exit in an embarrassing way to a Buccaneers team that, for the first time in NFL history, ranked bottom 10 in offense and defensive
Mm,
ranking.
that's not
That
good.
is that is tough. Um,
It does seem
so
like
I do
Sirianni is very much like not in the good graces of Eagles fans or Eagles
know.
front office. It seems like that would. You called it a couple weeks ago, but I think there is a decent chance he's
Yeah.
out of
Oh
there.
yeah.
I'd be surprised.
If he gets fired and Belichick takes that job, I'm doing a victory dance because I called that one a while ago. I mean, the Eagles and good on the Eagles because they're not a franchise that will sit around and let things fall apart and do
Yeah.
a complete rebuild. I mean, it's the same team that fired Doug Peterson one full season after he won a Super Bowl. So they don't like the past is the past for them. If they don't see that things are going to keep being successful, they will change
hmm
course if they have to. And I think Nick Sirianni he was propped up by his two coordinators last year,
hmm
who both got head coaching jobs this year. Shane Steichen with the Colts, who was kind of the creator of that Eagles offense last year. I mean, you saw what he did with the Colts. They
Yeah.
were almost a playoff team with a backup quarterback for the majority of the year. So, and then the Cardinals, I mean, they're definitely feistier than people expected, and the head coach Rich Gannon did a good job over there, and he was the Eagles' defensive coordinator last year, and that unit completely fell apart down the stretch. So, I mean, it's definitely going to be a wild kind of coaching carousel.
Yeah.
The Steelers, there's a lot of rumors Mike Tomlin was going to be fired or retire. He made clear yesterday that's not happening. So the streak continues. The Steelers, if you get the Steelers head coaching job, it's the best gig in the world because you're never getting
Yeah.
fired. He's been there like
True.
18 years. Um, and I mean, a lot of fans were wanting to kind of maybe go in a new direction. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016, but I don't really kind of pin that on him. They're kind of stuck in the 90s right now where they don't have a good quarterback. They just want to run the ball and play defense. And I think they're a sleeper team for a Justin Fields trade this offseason that I think
Mm.
really set them up. I think Falcons and Steelers, those are the two teams to be watching out for.
Hmm.
Because I do think the Bears will kind of have a reset. It's nothing on Justin Fields. I think he's a good player. It's just you can reset with a rookie contract or have to pay Justin Fields a lot of money next year.
Sure.
So I think those two teams are definitely to watch out for Justin Fields if the Bears go that route. Um, but other than that, so playoff recap, we talked about the Eagles, talked about the Steelers not winning, Cowboys doing what the Cowboys do. Poor old Cowboys. I mean, I took Packers +7, and I just felt so dumb because immediately it was like, oh, this is over. Like,
Yeah.
this is bad.
Yep.
I mean, Dak
It did
Prescott
happen very quickly.
folded, and they made it interesting at the end in garbage time. I mean, the Packers had pulled their starters, and then they had to put them back in for like one more drive, and then they went and scored again. They're like, all right, like, Cowboys, you should have just, like, we could have already been home. What are we doing?
I mean, it was still a pretty sizable win. It was still like 16 points, wasn't it?
Yeah, they cut it to 8, and then the Packers put Jordan Love and the starters back out there, and they
Mm.
scored again. They're like, all right, like, if you really want us to, we'll run it up.
Yeah.
Just quit.
Stop it.
And then the other fun storyline was the return of Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
Probably, it was actually not probably, but it actually was. The only good game was Lions Rams. Um, Fun back and forth. Good for the Lions. I know you're rooting for the Lions. Now, I'm
I'm a
not
big
personally,
Lions guy. Yeah.
just because they're in the basement of the NFL with us Jags fans as far as never winning a Super Bowl. So, I don't want that for them for selfish reasons.
Have
But
they never won a Super Bowl?
no, it's Bills, Jags, Texans, Lions, Browns,
Titans.
Titans. Never won a Super Bowl team.
Mm,
Tough. Bengals are on that list.
I mean, Bills and Lions both still in, so
Could you imagine
could
a
be the year.
Bills Lions Super Bowl?
Be pretty fun.
Be pretty rowdy.
That would be fun.
So we'll take that, and we will go to our playoff preview for this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm going to kick off with the 49ers and Ravens. Both one seeds had the bye week, so they didn't have to play last week. But
Yep.
both teams also sat all their starters the final week of the regular season.
Mm.
So really, we're talking 2 games, 3 weeks of rest, and how much rest is too much, to where you're talking about teams being off and maybe a little rusty.
And they're both playing really hot teams. Texans
Yes.
looks very good. CJ Stroud looks very good. So did the Packers, though, like you said. Jordan Love and the Packers also came out really hot. And so I think that is a big question of was sitting a couple weeks versus a team that's red hot. Both of those are in that situation right now. So
Yeah, it would be one thing if you were playing a team that kind of limped into the playoffs. I think that for the 49ers, they would have loved for the Eagles to have pulled off that win so they could play them, because the Eagles are a team that kind of limped in. But, I mean, if I'm the 49ers, I am a little worried about the Packers because Matt LaFleur comes from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree, so he understands what he's going up against offensively. And Jordan Love, I mean, there were like rumors in the middle of the season that maybe the Packers were going to be like, okay, we're not playing well. We're going to have a high draft pick. We can walk away from Jordan Love pretty cost efficiently and start over at quarterback because they're the youngest team in the NFL. So they could have started over at quarterback this year in a deep class, and he lit it up second half of the season. Second in the league in touchdown passes.
wow.
Like I said, youngest team in the league, so they've definitely got a bright future. And at this point, when like a young team, like, you hear the saying like they don't know anything better. Like they don't know that they're not supposed to be here, so they're just playing with house money at this point. Which is a dangerous thing to go up against because, I mean, this team is confident, and on the defensive side of the ball, they've got veterans everywhere. So this definitely could be a scary matchup for the 49ers, who have been labeled the best team all year. But if you kind of look at their wins, they haven't really had to beat anybody that good if you kind of think about it. 'Cause the Eagles fell apart. The Cowboys did what the Cowboys do. Those are kind of like their 2 biggest wins. And then same goes for the Ravens.
Yeah.
A team that's not had much playoff success with Lamar Jackson playing this Texans team who's definitely, they don't know that they're not supposed to be there because they're so red hot. They've got a rookie head coach. I mean, the Packers at least have veteran coaching. The Texans are rookie offensive coordinator, rookie defensive head coach, rookie quarterback, fifth youngest team in the league. And so if I had to pick one, I think I'd lean towards Ravens because the Ravens have just not had much playoff success under Lamar. Lamar beats up on bad teams, and then he beats up on the NFC because they don't play each other. Like, he's never lost to an NFC team. But what happens in the AFC is it's teams that know that system, which I know they're playing a new offense and they're passing more. And Lamar's probably going to win MVP. But don't be surprised if D'Amico Ryans has a very good game plan chalked up for Lamar, because D'Amico Ryans is a great head coach, a great defensive coach. So I'm a little worried about the Ravens. Makes me extra worried because the last thing I need on Twitter is Texans fans getting lit. They've become my new rival in life. I've had to put aside the
Oh,
Bills and
wow.
Titans. I've been fighting with Texans. And maybe he's a listener. I don't know. But I have a Texans fan who is on a burner account DMing me constantly. I mean, at this point, it's funny. Like
That's awesome.
I DM'd him this morning. I was like, "Hey man, how's your day going?" Just because he's DMing me every day, just talking trash. So,
You got haters, Tins.
well, if you don't have haters, you don't have fans, they
It's
say.
true.
So shout out that guy. I hope I'm wrong and the Ravens beat you by 40s. I have a funny DM waiting for you, buddy. But if not, we'll just keep going back and forth. All right, second kind of matchup I'm looking at is Lions Bucks. This is two teams. If you think about it, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, high draft picks, both 1-1s. I'm pretty sure. Jared Goff was either the first overall pick or the second overall pick. I know Baker was a 1-1. But these are two teams. I mean, Jared Goff got his team to the Super Bowl, and then after another year, McVay said, "I can't do it with this guy. Send him off. Send him to the Lions for Matthew Stafford."
He was first overall, by the
He
way.
was okay, sweet.
2016.
And Baker, I mean, Baker was the first overall draft pick. Was the first quarterback to lead the Browns to a playoff victory in a very long time, and not long after, gets traded away for Deshaun Watson. Has a rocky
Tough.
situation with the Panthers, ends up being cut, plays 4 random games with the Rams the end of the year, and kind of signs, he's the lowest paid starting quarterback this year. He signs a 1-year prove it deal with the Bucks, and all he's done is prove it that he's still a good quarterback in this league. He's still like a above average. He can start for a team and lead them to victories. And I mean, they got a big playoff win. Whether you want to just say is against a bad Eagles team or not, it doesn't really matter. It's playoff football. It's a team that went to the Super Bowl last year, and they smoked them. So that's a fun storyline for me. Two teams, two quarterbacks that have kind of been cast off by their original teams, and they're now fighting to be in the NFC Championship game. So that's, I don't know. I root for stuff like that. Baker, I think, has gotten a raw deal as far as the NFL goes. I think people gave up on him too fast, and I think he's going to find a home there in Tampa to stick for a while.
Jared Goff might get a statue in Detroit if he wins a couple more playoff games.
Yeah, I think he might get one just because he won last
Just
week.
won
I
one.
mean, there's people that have not seen that in their lifetime. We've never seen a Rams or a Lions win. I mean, that's wild.
It's crazy.
So, I mean, good for the Lions. Good for Jared Goff. He's another one. I like Jared Goff. I've never understood the hate that he gets. But so that's going to be a fun game. I'm cool with either one of them winning, honestly. And then the grand finale of them all.
Big one.
The two teams everyone's sick of talking about, but you got to talk about them.
Yeah.
The Kansas City Chiefs are traveling to Buffalo. Hopefully there's no snow or wind, because we'll have to move it to it's a pretty day for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen couldn't play in the elements. I won't go on too much about that. Everyone in our group text knows that I was pretty bitter that they moved that game. But you had to make sure the NFL's golden boy Josh Allen had perfect weather. I mean, it was cold, but he couldn't be dealing with that wind and snow. He can't throw bombs that way. But this game, I think this game is a very important game for these two quarterbacks. They're going to be linked to each other for a long time as two big guys in the AFC. It's kind of like a Peyton and a Tom Brady situation going on. And so far, Mahomes has been the Brady in this, where he's always got the Bills' number. I know the Bills beat him this past season in the regular season, but playoffs is different. Now the Chiefs have always had home field advantage in this, because they've been the 1 seed every year because Patrick Mahomes has never had to play a road playoff game. So this is his first one.
Wow,
Um,
that's a lot.
Crazy to think about. Yeah, it's crazy. He is now at 12 playoff wins, and they've all been at home other than Super Bowls. So
Something to
big
consider.
test. It's a very big test. The Bills been red hot ever since they made a change at offensive coordinator. This Joe Brady has kind of put Josh Allen in situations that he excels in, running the ball more, playing under center, giving him less choices to make, which equals Josh throwing less interceptions. So it's definitely going to be a big game. This is a big, prove it game for Josh Allen to me. The Chiefs have had your number. Granted, it's always been in Arrowhead. So prove to everyone that you can finally slay the dragon that is Patrick Mahomes, which is just, I don't
Not
know.
easy to do.
It's
Yeah.
not easy to do. I mean, you can't doubt Patrick. I'll always ride with Patrick Mahomes as an underdog until I'm proven otherwise. It's kind of like the same thing with Bama under Nick Saban. If you see a plus sign next to it,
Yeah.
I'll never feel dumb for taking that chance. So that's where
Okay,
I
James, I
stand.
have a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you seen the conspiracy theory going around about Josh Allen with the fake slide? Have you? Because he kind
Yes.
of pulled that stunt in the last game, and they got some, and then because
Yeah.
then
Because then he
uh,
did slide and got
and then they
hit.
got, yeah.
Um, you know,
Some people are saying it just he it looks like he's just a really slow like juke move because he's a quarterback and
I think that's what it is. He's a big guy. He's 6'5", like 240. He's a big dude.
yeah,
So I think he's trying to juke, and that's just what it looks like. I am in the rule of once you leave the line of scrimmage as a quarterback,
yeah,
you're a ball carrier now. You're a running back. I don't even like no more sliding. Just because at that point, what are we doing? Like play two hand touch with the quarterback.
yeah,
Because as a defender, by the time you leave your feet to make a tackle and they slide, we're talking about like fractions of a second reaction time. That's not
yep,
fair to the defender. They're already put in such bad situations anyway because of all the rules that they can and can't do. So I lean towards if you're going to run, then you're going to run, and you have to accept getting hit.
yeah.
Um, but I have seen them; they are funny. I do, but I don't. I don't
We
put
did
much
see it.
credit.
I mean, he ran for like a 50-yard, 52-yard touchdown.
Yeah,
And it does seem pretty obvious that sometimes people are scared to kind of go in for the big
they
hit
are.
against the
Yeah,
quarterback because it's like, they're so quick to throw that penalty. So,
yeah. It makes it tough. I don't. It's just I don't know what to do because certain. I mean, and a ref would tell you no, but certain quarterbacks are getting calls that certain quarterbacks aren't, and it's just part of it.
mhm,
Josh Allen would get a call if he got a big hit towards the head. Patrick Mahomes gets those calls,
all the
but
time. Yep,
a guy like Lamar Jackson who runs a lot, they're going to say, "Well, that's part of your game. Just deal with it. Slide, do something to protect yourself."
sure.
So it's just tough. I do think he can't be. It's not as like obvious as the Kenny Pickett one in that bowl game. People were trying to compare it to
Yeah,
that.
that was very bad.
That was a fake slide. Like that was as obvious
Yeah, you can't do
as could be. That's cheating. Like
that.
that's
I think that will
but
be a
no, I
fun
don't think
matchup,
Josh
though. I'm
cheated.
excited. I think Bills
Yeah,
Mafia is
that's
going to come out in force. You've seen a lot of memes about Taylor Swift having her first interaction with uh, Bills Mafia, having to go to Buffalo for the game, and so I think that's going to be very funny to
yeah,
watch.
drunk guys body slamming tables that are on fire. It's definitely different than what she's been dealing with in Kansas City.
It's true.
So it'll be fun. I'm glad they made it the last game of the weekend. Kind of put a cherry on top. Hopefully, it's a good game. I'm hoping we have better games this
Yeah, me
weekend.
too.
It does seem like Wild Card Weekend has been the same the last few years, where there's not really any good games.
Mm.
Happened last year too. Every game was a blowout, except for my team came back from 27-0. But
Mm.
that was it. That's all we had. That's all I have to hold on to for a long time, I think. But hopefully, but the second weekend is normally a lot better. Because I do think as much parity as there is in the NFL, once you get through the wild card weekend, it truly is the last best 8 teams are the ones that are there. It sorts itself out. I think if you were to dive deep into statistics, these were probably, other than maybe the Bucks kind of got a lucky hand with playing a falling apart Eagles team. Like I said, the Bucks are bottom 10 in both offense and defensive everything. So that's tough, but prove the world wrong, my guy Baker.
It's gonna be exciting.
Gritty, not pretty.
I do. If you look back at the season at this NFC and said that the Cowboys and the Eagles weren't going to be there, I think that would be weren't going to be in this round. I think you'd be pretty surprised. So, some fun teams that have popped up. I think it's going to be exciting stuff.
Yep. So it should make for a good divisional round playoffs. And like I said, me and Mason, once Mason's back in the country where I can text him, we get some picks cooked up for you guys. We'll have something out Saturday as far as graphics go. But until then, make sure you're checking us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And then make sure you are here Monday for a special Mess Around Monday. Mason will be back. We'll have something fun cooked up. We always do. It'll be full of nonsense to get you through your Monday morning. Until then, thank you guys. Good weekend.